Welcome to Nobody Told Me. I'm Jan Black.
And I'm Laura Owens. Dating is a hot topic these days as the traditional ways of meeting potential mates and the rules of dating have changed dramatically in recent years, thanks to dating websites and apps. Our guest on this episode, dating coach Damona Hoffman, is here to help shed some light on what's happening in the dating world and what to do if you're puzzled or frustrated by today's dating scene.
Damona is also the host of the Dates and Mates podcast. Damona, thank you so much for joining us.
I am so honored to be here. Thank you.
How did you get to be a certified dating coach?
Quite by accident. The certification came after I actually had been writing profiles for many years. I started writing dating profiles about 13 years ago after I met my husband online. And this was, we're talking in the Middle Ages. This is when online dating was really in its infancy, and it was very uncool to meet that way. But I was working at the time as a casting director in television, and I was teaching classes for actors in marketing and how to really tell your story through your photos and stand out in a crowd. And basically, I realized, this is kind of the same thing I'm doing with online dating. I'm telling my story. I'm picking great photos. And so after I met my husband online, I had people coming to me saying, wait a minute, what did you do? You got a pretty good one. Let me see your technique. And I just started writing the profiles. But then I found after a few years that I wanted to be able to take my clients from first date all the way through to the relationship. And so I became certified as a life coach and then specifically as a dating coach so that I could track them through this entire process.
I remember when I was first on dating apps, and I would always see in the profiles people saying, we'll say we met at a grocery store, at the movies or something, and you don't see that anymore. So do you think that the stigma has largely gone away with dating apps and websites?
I think the stigma has certainly decreased. I wouldn't say it is completely invisible, but when we first met, that was certainly not what we told people. And I have clients too. That I have one who was a flight attendant, and she said, "Oh, we'll just say we met in the airport." But I think especially with Tinder and the advent of the dating apps, that has really changed the game, and that made it accessible to so many more people, which has pros and cons, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a minute. And I know, Laura, you've had different experiences, but I have seen that people don't have so much of a stigma or feeling that if you met on dating apps, that's not a good way to meet. But I do hear from clients that they say they wish that wasn't their story. They wish they had a different story to tell their kids. I'm plenty happy to tell my kids the story of us meeting online because I have kids to tell that story to. So it worked out for me.
So what does a dating coach do, and who typically hires you?
A dating coach helps you put a process around finding love and helps you identify your dating patterns and move past them. So that looks different for a variety of my clients. I have programs that I run online, and then I have people that I coach one-on-one to really give them a deep dive into why does this keep happening to you? How can you change your mindset towards dating, change your goal of who you're looking for, get clear on your goal of who you're looking for, and then put a plan in place that makes it accessible, that makes it make sense. I think we've seen too many rom-coms and we've read too many fairy tales, and we think Prince Charming's just going to run up and sweep us off our feet and throw us on the back of the horse, and we're going to ride off into the sunset. And I just find that in today's world, the thing that gets our attention, the thing that we really focus on and put a plan in place around is the thing that blossoms. And most times that isn't love. And so we're seeing a lot of frustration in the love space because people don't want to put the process around it because they were told it was supposed to be magical. And yet that is really, for me, the key to unlocking love in the modern world.
So do you think that for the most part, people are too picky on these dating apps because they have so many options and they're not really giving a chance to the person who might be Mr. Right, even though he doesn't look like that?
Well, you're kind of asking two different questions. I would say saying I'm picky is one thing that I hear a lot. But when I hear picky, I actually hear I'm afraid of being hurt. And I don't want to put myself too far out there because I might not like what I get back. So I address picky as one challenge, but I do see now with more people being on dating apps, that there's a wide variety of intentions that are happening there. And there's still some hesitation from people to really say what they're looking for. And then they don't say, I'm really looking for a relationship or marriage and kids, because they're afraid that's going to make people run away. And then they don't like the outcome. They don't like that the people that they've gotten are not looking for a serious relationship. So I think it's I don't blame the tool, but I think we are in the midst of a cultural shift, and we just have to learn to adapt.
And I think that what you see so often, too, is even with these apps that will allow you to narrow it down. And I guess I was meaning too picky, because you can make it like, okay, the guy can only be between 5'11" and 6'2", and, he's got to be athletic with this build, and he needs to be looking for a relationship and come from this religious background. And you're maybe overlooking some people that maybe would be a good match for you in person. But I found that even some guys who will say that they are looking for a relationship on the app end up not actually being that person in person, and they don't really know what they want. So it's almost misleading.
Mm-hmm. And we can't control what the other person does. We can only control what we do. So one big mistake that I see with dating apps is when people are thinking about that other person and who they're trying to attract, rather than really focusing on what they want and sort of selling who they are and letting that attract the right person. So if you're completely transparent about the fact that you're looking for a relationship in your profile, those guys that are going to play games, a vast majority of them are going to run the other way, because they're going to know that you're going to try to move the relationship in a direction that they don't really want to go. But nobody's saying that up front. Everybody's just like, well, let's be friends and let's have fun and see where it goes. But when you set an intention, as with any other area of your life, you set the intention really clearly, you tend to get back what you're putting into it.
What are some of the clues to watch out for in determining whether someone is lying on a dating app, maybe saying they're single when they're really married, or saying they're 28 when they're really 40?
Oh, well, those are a few different things. So I'll talk first about photos. And I've had clients, like just the other day, I was looking at someone's profile and I said, this photo, is this, how long ago did you take this photo? And she said, 2 years. Why? Do I not look like that anymore? And I said, I'm not looking at, do you look like that anymore? I mean, that's one element, but I'm looking at the quality of the photo doesn't look crisp. And the expectation now is that everybody has a dating app in their pocket. You have a smartphone with a camera, with a high quality camera on it. You have to have a current photo. And I can tell from looking at it if it looks like a current photo or not. So that can be one red flag. If they're lying about things in your profile, that's sort of the next phase, and getting off of the app and getting into communication and being able to see, can this person talk credibly about the thing that they said they're so passionate about? Or did they just rattle off a list of qualities or a list of activities that they said they enjoyed because it sounded cool, but that actually isn't authentic to who they are? So there is certainly, there's some manipulation in dating apps, but I feel like when you know the signs and you really cut through, it's easy to eliminate the ones that are either fake profiles, lying about themselves, or not looking for the same things.
And I also think, too, you can tell a lot about a person based on how they represent themselves in their photos.
Yes, how they represent themselves in their photos is key, and how they talk about themselves. I mean, usually I can scan a profile and one of my clients might say, well, this person sounds great. And they're using all of these words that sound non-committal and that sound like, I just want to have a lot of fun and experience the world and travel and live life. And it's like, well, if you're looking to settle down and start a family, then you two are not in alignment. So that usually, like Maya Angelou says, if someone shows you who they are the first time, don't make them prove it to you again and again. I can usually see the first time. And a lot of times my clients, if their ears are open and they're really hearing the person on the first or second date, they will reveal on the phone call. If you do a phone call, I'm sure, Laura, you're not doing the phone call.
No.
But it is
Text
a really
exchange.
big filter. It's a bit of a generational thing, but I find that it's a really big filter to tell if somebody's willing to show up for you. If you say, let's touch base, before we move offline, I'd love to, hear your voice. I'll be home tonight between 7 and 9. And they don't call between 7 and 9, then that tells you something about their interest in investing in a relationship with you. If you have a brief conversation with them on the phone and you get an icky feeling in your tummy and you feel like, oh, I don't know if this person is right, pay attention to that. And if you get on the phone and you want to talk about things that are in their profile and they don't have the goods to back it up, that should also tell you something. So you don't have to get offline. You don't have to have 3, 4, or 5 dates with them. You don't have to text with them ad nauseum to discover that they were who they said they were the first time.
How should you open the conversation with someone you're connecting with on a dating app? I mean, what's wrong with saying, like, how's your day going or something like that?
How's your day going? To me, doesn't move the conversation forward very quickly. And it's very easy to get stuck in what I call the texting trap of just the check-in, like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm at work. What about you? I'm at work too. That's cool. And then the cycle, I know you've seen this, it starts over and over again the next day. So the goal is to move the conversation forward and discover things about them. So even just asking, like, what's on your Netflix queue today is jumping you into the conversation and giving you insight into what's that person's sense of humor, what's their sensibility, what kind of things do they like to watch? Or instead of just saying, what kind of music do you listen to? What's the last concert that you went to? That tells you more, that gets them storytelling. And that automatically is more compelling than just checking people off a list. That's not fun, but that's what a lot of daters are doing. To go back to your point, Laura, a lot of people are trying to check off a list, and that's what's making them not satisfied, and that's what's making them, quote, picky, because it's that deeper level of communication and connection that we really need to be going for.
How long do you think the conversation should go back and forth before somebody asks somebody out on a date?
Not that long.
I agree.
Have several rules of 3. So I say you should generally have about 3 exchanges online before moving to the next step, whether that's setting a date, setting a call, moving things forward. So that could be 3 emails. That could be 3 text chains, text bursts. And, you can feel when you're texting with someone and the conversation hits a lull, right?
Right.
You feel that when you're going back and forth. So that's the end of a thread. That's the end of a text thread. That's one communication. If by the third one of those threads, the date is not being suggested, and I'm a feminist dating coach, so I don't have a problem with a woman saying, I would love to talk more about this over drinks or dinner or when I see you in person. And that's the invitation for him to say, oh, I better get this offline and she's going to say yes. So let me make this happen if he has that intention. If he doesn't have that intention, it becomes very clear at that point. But certainly for any men in your audience that are listening, by the end of that phone call, if you have a phone call, you better be asking her on a date. And by the end of that third text burst, you better be moving things forward to the date, or you're just wasting your time and you're wasting her time.
And at what point do you get the person's last name?
It's interesting, actually. There's been a real shift towards authenticity. When I began in this business 13 years ago, your dating profile was something that you created apart from yourself. And it was this identity that you developed of the dateable person that is going to attract Prince Charming or the princess. And there's been a big switch. I would say it began with Tinder and the use of your actual name that has moved us towards craving authenticity and wanting to know, I don't want to meet some random online that I don't have any connection to and I don't know what's going to happen. I want to know I'm this many degrees of separation from this person. I want to know who this person is and be able to Google them and check them out. So to answer your question, it's actually done for us a lot. And a lot of the dating apps, they're integrating Instagram. So you already know their last name. But I would say if you're not on an app like that, I think it's a good idea to get their last name before you set the date. And then you can just do a really brief cursory search. Don't go all the way down the Google rabbit hole.
Right. As long as you're sure it's going to be safe when you go out with them. And I think, but I was going to say too, I think even over the years since I was first on these dating apps and I was talking about them with my mom, I've really seen that shift as well. And the apps that I use are Hinge and Bumble and The League. And those are all connected through your education and your LinkedIn. And, they connect you through your last name now. So it's no longer, a username, which I agree. I always found that really impersonal.
Which brings me actually to an important point now, that we have to really think of your entire social media identity as part of your dating profile, whether it's connected or not. Whatever you have that is public is now part of your profile. So we need to really be mindful of how we're presenting ourselves in that way, in a way that we haven't had to in the past, if you're really trying to attract a date. Because if someone reads something out of context, that's you just talking to your boys the way that you talk, and a lady reads that and she takes offense to it, you've lost yourself a date. And I mean, I don't have to tell you, we do research now. Yeah. We really do look. And it only takes one thing that's a little off color or could be read out of context to be the difference between moving that date forward or getting the second date or not.
And what advice do you have in terms of the locations and situations and activities you might want to do on a first date with someone you've just met on a dating app?
Well, always, for safety, always meet in a public place that you're familiar with. Now a lot of people are taking ride shares to the date, so we don't have to worry as much about the pick me up at 7. Do not get in the car with someone you just met online. Just, I say it, and people just clients, I've had clients ignore it. And then, I was feeling it, and so I did. So just, we want safety just to be taken care of so that all the magic and romance can happen. We don't have to worry about the safety. So public place that you're familiar with. And I'm a big fan of activity dates. I think a first date, dinner date is death. That is the most boring date you could possibly have. That's an interview. That's a 2-hour commitment. The first date actually should be really short and sweet. You want to make the energy feel like it's ending in the middle. You want the date to feel like it's to be continued so that you can get that second date. And that's when people really become themselves and really unfold, they share the information that you really want to know about them. But the first date's sort of just like a meet and greet, just to see if there's a connection there.
And is the 3-day rule still a thing?
The 3-day rule in terms of don't call for the next date, no, that's gone. But I do have a 3-date rule where I tell my clients, you don't need to know on the first date if you want to introduce them to mom, for example. All you need to know is that you're curious enough to get a second date with them. And at the end of the second date, all you need to know is that you're curious enough to spend another couple of hours with them. If by the third date you're not feeling butterflies and you're not thinking more about what the next step would be, then I think it's okay to leave it there. But I think we're doing too much filtering on the first date and not getting into the juicy, exciting parts of getting to know someone, which really happens after the first date jitters are out of the way.
Is it smart to date someone whose political views may be somewhat different than yours? And how can you find that out?
Oh, you just stepped right into it. That's been actually one of the bigger shifts that's happened in the time that I've been doing this work. Knowing someone's political affiliation was actually pretty low on the priority list 10 years ago. We didn't really talk about it. Now it has bumped up to one of the primary filters, and I see it in a ton of profiles. Don't even contact me if you voted for this person.
Yeah.
So how important is it? Well, I'll say looking at data, and I'm big into data and what's really happening in trends. A lot of relationships where people are on different sides of the political spectrum are not lasting. A lot of those relationships are ending, and many people are not getting into a relationship now with someone of a different background. I mean, we see the same thing, in content and media. It's the same thing it's reflected back in dating. We cannot seem to communicate with someone that has a different perspective right now. So, I think you should or shouldn't? I think you have to figure out what's really important to you. And that's why I always begin my programs with mindset, getting clarity on who you're looking for and what your values are and what's really important to you beyond like he needs to make $200,000 and he needs to have a full head of hair and, all of these traits that we think we want. Like, who is that person at their core? And maybe for you, if you have a strong political affiliation and that's a big part of your life, maybe that is of primary importance. But if it is not, I wouldn't put up barriers where they don't necessarily belong.
And this brings me to talking about yourself in a profile. And I read an article with you in the Oprah magazine, and you said that your description should be 3/4 about you and 1/4 about what you're looking for in the other person. So can you give us an example of a great way to describe yourself and a great way to describe what you're looking for someone who's maybe never been on a dating app?
Well, it begins with storytelling. So we want to really jump right into the action. I go through most profiles and I can just cut the first line or 2 lines because usually it doesn't actually say anything.
Yeah.
That's when it's the preamble, I call it. So really jump into the heart of it and give someone a sense of who you are through what you do, through the choices that you make and the way that you live your life. But the attention span is shrinking. The amount of space you have to write is shrinking. So you have to be really mindful about the words that you choose. And I just find most of the time in profiles, people are just listing. I'm looking for someone, and I always hear the same 3 adjectives: funny, smart, successful, ambitious. It's the same profile again and again and again. What makes you unique? And I talk about in the Oprah's magazine article, I also talk about something called the 3 C's, and that is in selecting your profile photos. And even 13 years ago, I had the foresight to know that people were starting to make decisions based on what they saw, not based on what they read, and that choosing someone based on their profile photos was the direction things were headed in, as opposed to reading these long-winded profiles. So let me be succinct and short-winded about this. Your profile photos are really actually the core attractor in your profile. So you want to make sure that those are telling your story and telling someone what your life is about, because if they don't see that, they're never going to go on and read the written part. And the 3 C's are color, context, and character. Color, that's a tactical thing. That's putting yourself in the position of the person who's swiping. They're seeing picture after picture after picture. Just having color will make you stand out from the lineup and make them pause and put their focus on you to go beyond that picture into the other pictures. And in those other pictures, we want context. We want you to tell your life story through your photos, show what you're into, show what activities you enjoy, and then character. That's really showing your personality. And that is the thing that I think a lot of people forget. And that is actually the element that makes someone take action and write to you beyond just swiping right, swiping left, to actually say, this person is a connection for me. This isn't just a pretty profile, but I really get them and I think we would connect.
Now, we've talked about how texting is one of the primary steps in the dating process these days. And I know you have several suggestions along the lines of texting. What are those?
Well, keep it short and sweet. We tend to divulge more about ourselves over text than we would if we were sitting face to face with someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really encourage people to keep the texting short. Just get enough banter where you can volley back and forth, and you can understand one another, and that they match up with their profile. And then really think about driving to the date and moving to offline. And I have a whole texting 10 commandments on my website on datesandmates.com. So I don't want to belabor all of the rules, but there are different ways that you can really share that you can really communicate on a deeper level. Using mood modifiers like emojis or GIFs or even emoticons if you have to go there. But using we lose the context of what someone intends in texting. So sometimes using a mood modifier like that can be the difference between someone understanding what you mean and someone taking offense to it.
I have seen firsthand how amazing online dating and apps have been in my life. And regardless of whether or not each experience has been great, I would say it's still been helpful in developing who I am as a person. And I think that my friends who are on the apps would agree with that as well. But I know that kind of technology and dating on apps and on websites is pretty foreign to people in my mom's age group. So I was wondering what sort of resources you think they should utilize, and basically what's your elevator pitch for online dating for people who have not used these apps?
Right, and who may be a little bit older, out of their 20s or 30s.
I think they're great. Great. I think my mom's friends who are single could really benefit from being on them, but they're afraid of them.
Right. I do have a lot of friends who are divorced or widowed and would like to do this, and they're frightened.
Well, first of all, I would say thank you for saying that. It's been beneficial for you, because I do hear a lot of frustration and overwhelm from people that have been using dating apps as long as you have. And I always felt like it does help you build your communication skills, and it helps you to open up your dating pool. If you think of even a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations ago, your dating pool was basically like your block and the person in your neighborhood.
Yeah,
and
especially
now,
if you were in a small town or something.
Sure. Now your dating pool is the whole world. And I think that means a lot of opportunity, and particularly a lot of opportunity for women where it didn't exist before. So that's part of my elevator pitch. But I've coached many women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s into using online dating. There are a lot of apps that are specifically geared also to the 50 plus set, or dating sites specifically. And it's just a learning curve. It's just a new thing to learn. Like once you get comfortable with the technology, then it's just learning to move offline and do what you have always done before. But I've seen people go from being married for 30 years and having to basically learn how to date again. But that's why I really look at dating as a learned skill. And the best way to learn and develop a new skill is by doing it and trying it.
What are some of the sites or the apps that you would especially recommend for people who are older?
Well, some of the general sites are very successful, and I collaborate with Match a lot. And I find that it can be very successful for some of my clients. There's also Our Time. There are many apps that specifically cater to people 50 or 55 plus. But even using the traditional apps, even using eHarmony, the pool of people is there. It's just a matter of finding the right match for you. I'm always asked, what is the best site? And I really can't answer that because it changes. It changes from month to month. I have a client right now that a month ago on the app that she's using, I was like, I can't find any dates. And then I went on, this is the busiest time for online dating right now, this time of year, at the beginning of the year. This is the best time to be online, and the highest number of options are available to you. But now on the same site, I've been making lists and lists of look at this guy, and that's on the same site. Now I put her on another site as well that another client had a lot of success with, who was based in a different city. And I found two guys to recommend to her. And I said, I don't know if this is the right site for you and for what you're looking for. So you really have to be open to trying it out. And as Laura said, you might need to be on 2 apps, maybe 3 apps. There is a point where it becomes where it's diminishing returns when there's so much activity, and you've probably experienced this, so much activity that you can't keep up. So my advice is to really just pick one site and just see how the pool works for you. See if you like the people that are there, if you like the functionality of the app. That's another thing that really varies from app to app. And then just find the right fit for you at that moment and be open to potentially switching apps if it feels like you're seeing the same people and you're not moving offline anymore.
And I think you see the same people from app to app too, as well.
Yes.
It doesn't really matter. I match with the same people on different apps all the time and a conversation never gets started.
Yes, that is true. And so you could be doubling your chances by being on multiple apps, but you could be seeing the same people. And so is it better to just focus on one app and to really give that your focus, or is it better to be distracted on 3 or 4 or 5? I talked to somebody the other day who said he had 6 dating apps downloaded on his phone currently. And I thought, well, no wonder all of these communications are falling off and you're matching with people, but ending up in this endless text chain or never even starting the text chain. It's because we're overwhelmed.
Right.
So let's just simplify it. Like the tagline of my Dates and Mates podcast is modern love made simple. And that's what I always aim to do. Make it simple.
And Damona, our show is called Nobody Told Me. And we always ask our guests, what's your nobody told me lesson? So what is it about dating or relationships that nobody told you about, that you had to learn on your own, and that you wish someone had told you about, and that you'd maybe like to pass on to somebody else?
Well, nobody told me that it was all going to be okay. And there was a period of time when I was a total love cynic, and I was super frustrated with meeting guys offline, meeting guys online. And I thought, well, this is basically it. I'm going to die alone. Mm-hmm. And obviously that's not the case for me now. And it's the mindset that a lot of my clients come to me with. And I just wish there had been someone to tell me, don't worry, it's all going to be okay, so that I didn't get so whipped up in the moment of each individual date and each individual interaction holding so much weight for me to the point where it damaged my self-worth. It damaged my faith in believing that I could find a great partner. And I had to do a lot of work to unravel that. And if I had just known it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to work out, and when you put your intention somewhere and you really focus on that, your life will grow in that way, it would have reduced my stress level substantially.
I completely agree. And you could have enjoyed that whole process of being single so much more. I always think I'm going to look back one day and be like, man, those were the good old days. And, I'm not enjoying them as much now because it's exciting, but it is also kind of like a second job to be dating.
It can be. And I do often say date like it's your job. But my advice is to make it your primary focus for a finite period of time. Like my online programs, I have people commit for 30 days, my one-on-one coaching for 90 days. So I'm not asking you for your whole life to drag this out and say, we're going to spend 2 years finding Mr. Right. I say, just give it 90 days of your life to do it this way and to do it differently. And I find the majority of my clients do meet someone that they want to date exclusively within that 90 days. And it doesn't feel so overwhelming because you know that there's an end to that period. And then if you don't happen to make that match, you give yourself a break. And that's another big thing that I think a lot of people aren't doing in dating today. They're not giving themselves a break. We're just staying on the apps and we're grinding it out and we're going on the dates and we're going to make it happen one way or another. And if we could just find a little bit of compassion for ourselves, a little bit of softness, a little bit of levity in it, I think, like you said, that process would be enjoyable. You will look back and say, those were the good old days. That was so much fun. And I learned so much about myself. I think dating is a real opportunity for self-discovery. And when we look at it that way, it doesn't feel like drudgery. It feels more like an interesting opportunity.
Damona, how can people connect with you on social media?
I'm on all the social medias at Damona Hoffman. It's Damona. And my podcast, Dates and Mates, is weekly. We talk about this kind of stuff every week. And so I'd love to connect with people there, and also through datesandmates.com, which I always have goodies like this texting 10 commandments we talked about. And pretty soon I'll also be offering a profile starter kit for those folks that don't even know where to begin with the profile, that gives them an easy template to get started and to just get online and get out there.
And your website is damonahoffman.com?
Yes. It's datesandmates.com also directs you to the same place.
Okay, great. Damona, thank you so much. It's been a joy to talk with you.
Oh, same here. Thank you both.
We really appreciate it. Our guest, Damona Hoffman, again, she's the host of the Dates and Mates podcast, and her website is damonahoffman.com, in addition to all the other places that she mentioned that you can connect with her on social media. I'm Jan Black.
And I'm Laura Owens.
You're listening to Nobody Told Me. Thank you so much for joining us.